Okay, excellent.
Okay, we're gonna unmute ourselves. So Mikhail, please take it away. You are our conclusion presentation. You can tie it all together with a pretty little bow.
Okay, no pressure.
And just tell us what to do next for your slides.
Perfect. Okay, that was going to be my question. So I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Mikhail Haramati, and I lead the Building Efficiency R&D here at the California Energy Commission. So for those of you not familiar with our work, we're the state agency that is charged with doing the demand forecast and a number of various energy efficiency focused programs. We do Title 20 and Title 24, and then we also run a very large research program around natural gas and electricity, developing new technologies. We're actually the second largest in the country outside of DOE and the largest state-sponsored energy research program. So I'll be talking today about our two different funding sources for research and some of our example projects on the energy efficiency side. Next. Okay, so the two funding sources that we use are electric research funds and natural gas research funds. So both of these are collected as a surcharge on the bills of investor-owned utility customers that are here in California, PG&E, Southern California Edison, San Diego Gas and Electric, and SoCalGas. And this is a percentage of each customer's bill. This all goes into a pot. It's administered by the Public Utilities Commission, or I should say it's sort of directed by the Public Utilities Commission. And then we get a large chunk of it here at the Energy Commission, and then the utilities get a small portion for a different category of research. Next. Okay, so on the electric side, this is collected from electric ratepayers. It's about actually $130 million a year in awards. We have a large number of active projects. So you can see on the right side our active projects, both headquarters and site locations. So the headquarters are for the recipients. We have given out 304 total awards so far via a competitive solicitation, and we have over 50 completed projects. This particular research program was created in 2012, and we focus on research that looks into developing technologies for energy efficiency and demand response. We also do environmental and climate research. The fourth climate assessment is funded by this. We do grid integration and transportation. This includes things like storage and microgrids. Also renewable energy development, solar, hydro, various renewable energy technologies that are cutting edge, anything that's just emerging. And we also fund incubators here at the state level. There's one in Northern California, which is one cyclotron road for the Northern California cluster. We also have the Southern California cluster, Lacey, down in LA, one in San Diego, and one in the Central Valley. And we also have the small grants program through this that gives awards up to $150,000 for entrepreneurs that are developing business ideas around clean tech. So huge, huge program. We span kind of the gamut for different types of energy research, and I'll be focused on that first bullet when I talk about the projects, which is on the energy efficiency and demand response side.
And
I'll just. Oh, go ahead.
Fair to say that you're leading one of the largest research programs in the world. I mean, there's the DOE.
Definitely.
Yeah. So it's the big. Okay. Sorry.
Very big. Yeah. and also energy efficiency and demand response is the largest group that we're funding in this area. So we have more projects than the others. So tons of things happening simultaneously. I think the most difficult challenge that we face is really getting the word out about all of the exciting new technologies and approaches that we're developing. I want to mention the guiding principles for EPIC, which are to develop societal benefits, reduce GHG emissions, and increase adaptation in the electricity sector at the lowest possible cost. And we're also directed to support the loading order in California, which requires energy efficiency and demand response to be done before funding new generation, and then also increasing economic development. So there's definitely a multi-prong objective here that our competitive solicitation process is intended to hit. Next slide. And Sean, if you want to jump in, if there's anything that you'd like further explained, I'm happy to do so. I generally try to avoid acronyms in these things, but you always slip past. Okay.
I interject when I want.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so this is actually our natural gas funding. And the reason why I'm distinguishing between these two, so electric ratepayers fund the electric research and natural gas ratepayers fund the natural gas research, and these are not always the same. So think Southern California Edison, they might be an electric customer of Edison and then maybe a gas customer of LADWP, or maybe up in the Sacramento area, there are gas customers of PG&E who are electric customers of SMUD or local muni. So projects that are done in the service territories have to benefit they have to be done with customers that are actually paying into the fund. So for instance, in the Sacramento area, we can only do natural gas projects because the customers around here are only natural gas customers of an investor-owned utility. Okay, so our natural gas research, this one's actually been around as a research program much longer than EPIC. We were directed in 2004 to become the administrator of it, and we give out about $24 million a year. We fund various categories of research similar to the electric side, and the objectives here are kind of focused around commercializing technologies, reducing fugitive emissions from natural gas infrastructure, minimizing air quality impacts, supporting renewable natural gas, and reducing customer bills. Next slide. Okay, so who do we award grants to? Many entities. Like I said, on the EPIC side, we've given out over 50 awards, and many more on the natural gas side. We award funds to entities that are located within California and pass our competitive solicitation process, or have some proportion of their work located in California and are maybe acting as a subcontractor to a prime recipient who's located in California. So one of the other objectives of the research from both electric and natural gas is to be supporting economic development here. So here's a list of some of the folks that we've awarded grants to. Next slide. And then these are some of the areas that we focus on for energy efficiency. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to talk briefly about a few of these projects. So this is one of our active projects right now with UC Davis, and the objective is to come up with new ways of cooling cows. So one of the things I learned on this project is that when cows are hot and their temperature rises, they produce less milk. So this is a concern for dairies. They have to keep the cows at an optimal temperature in order to make sure that the milk production of the cows is optimized. So the UC Davis researchers are testing a variety of different cooling technologies. One of them is cooling mats, which runs cold water in a closed loop system underneath the cow's bedding. Cow bedding, another thing I learned, is sand, not hay. I sort of had like a old McDonald view of dairies, I think, where cows eat and lay on hay. They don't, they lay on sand in our current dairies. And sand is a heat sink, and with the cooling mat technology, the heat is pulled out of the cow's body into the cooling mats with the cold water, and then run into a chiller and back again. So that's one technology that's being tested, and that's replacing or seeking to replace the current practice of just spraying cold water on the cows and letting their temperature be reduced through evaporation. Next slide. Okay, this is another project. This one's at the Port of Long Beach. The electric, I'll just say EPRI is the recipient. This is a kind of interesting project. It's demand response. This is using load control and individually packaged rooftop chillers. So the way cooling warehouses are typically constructed is your refrigeration warehouse. There's one big room. There's some kind of central plant that runs coolant through the plant, and then everything in the room is the same temperature. So you might have kind of think of like a walk-in freezer, right, where you have maybe a freezer that's kept to 0 degrees Fahrenheit, and everything that goes into that freezer is going to be the same temperature. So one of the innovative things about the Lineage facility at the Port of Long Beach is that not only does it have a number of different rooms in it, but each room is controlled with 2 packaged HVAC units. And that allows the unoccupied rooms to not be chilled at all. And it also allows the rooms that are occupied to be set to whatever the desired temperature is. And so they're able to, actually next slide, I'll show some photos. They're able to have things like avocados in one room and frozen turkeys in another. And because let's say they're storing frozen turkeys, they know they're getting a large shipment in. They need the room to be, let's say, minus 10 degrees a week from now. It doesn't really matter when the chiller kicks on from their perspective over the next week, as long as the room hits the desired temperature at the end of the 7 days. And so that gives them a lot of flexibility in terms of when they can use energy. And Southern California Edison is a partner on this project, and it is working with them to use their controls along with the correct rate tariff so that they'll save money and also use energy when it's most advantageous to the grid. Next slide. Okay, this is another project in Southern California. This is testing gas-fired heat pumps for a commercial building. This is actually at 2 commercial restaurants in Southern California. One is a Norm's Diner and the other is an Olive Garden. And what's interesting about this is that it's providing both domestic hot water, or I'm sorry, not domestic, commercial hot water, and cooling. And one of the restaurants, the Norm's Diner, is a 24-hour restaurant, and the Olive Garden is a more traditional restaurant with a kind of big lunch and dinner rush. And so the objectives of funding both of these simultaneously is to get an understanding of which of these 2 load shapes and ways of using hot water and cooling would be most cost-effective with the installation of these same gas-fired heat pump units. Both of them, interestingly, required special permits from the South Coast Air Quality District in order to run because they are on natural gas. And both units are about to be installed. They are on skids right now and will be installed temporarily and then removed following the end of the project. Next slide.
Sorry,
okay,
there a little.
Go ahead.
We're just giggling because I was jumping the gun going to the next slide a couple of times there. Keep on going, just having a good time.
Okay. So another project I want to mention is our gas-fired heat pump project. This is being tested in 5 homes throughout California, in the LA area in particular. And so this one, we're actually funding a number of single-family electric heat pumps. And the objective of doing the gas-fired heat pumps is to provide an alternative in situations where an electrical upgrade is not possible, right? So as you heard earlier, in order to do an electric heat pump, in many of these cases, if you're switching from a natural gas water heater to electric, you may need to provide new service to the home if it doesn't have additional capacity. So in those situations, it may be more cost-effective or more advantageous to do a gas-fired heat pump using the existing tank and distribution system and reducing the GHG emissions somewhat, but not requiring an upgrade that could make it not cost-effective. Okay, next slide. Okay, and a slightly different type of project is actually in our industrial ag and water group. So this is deficit irrigation at Vineyards, and this is with a company called Fruition Sciences, and it's an alternative to evapotranspiration, right? The idea of having sensors in the ground that monitor the soil moisture and give you a sense of when to apply water. So this is like one step up in terms of sophistication, and this company is installing a monitoring device actually like under the bark on these grapes, and the monitoring device kind of monitors the metabolism of the plant, and so it can tell when the plant is stressed and when water is going to be most beneficial for the growth of the plant, and when it's not advantageous. And in addition to being able to optimize the use of water, this also allows the vineyard folks to control the taste and character of the grapes. So this is, I think, one of those technologies that is likely to have broad market adoption, both from the water and energy saving standpoint, and also because it really allows for control and production of a better product from the customer's perspective in terms of wine. So this is being tested at 2 wineries, one in Livermore and one in Napa. Next slide. Okay, so this is probably worth mentioning that we fund everything on the technology readiness level, from applied research to technologies that are ready for demonstration and deployment. So this particular project is more on the applied research side. So it's focusing on nanoparticles and looking at what combination of nanoparticles and in what materials can achieve the highest R value, the highest insulation properties at the lowest cost. This is one of the projects that we're co-funding with DOE. We do this with a number of projects. And the researchers are testing silica, aluminum, and titanium dioxide for their insulating properties. Next slide. On the manufactured housing side, this is a project that recently completed. It was focused on developing a method for adding wall and roof insulation to manufactured mobile homes that are being produced anyway. So this is actually a pretty significant area of energy use in California. I was unaware that about 10,000 new manufactured homes are built in California each year. These are homes on a chassis. So for those of you who are wondering what's the difference between a modular home and a manufactured home, there are strict definitions about this. So a manufactured home or mobile home is built on wheels. So they're not usually moved, but they have that option. And a prefab home, for instance, is not intended to be moved. And one of the other significant points about this is that HUD actually is the regulator for manufactured or mobile homes. So this is a very successful demonstration project in that it allows customers of these new homes to be able to purchase advanced envelope designs that include wall and attic insulation, and they're quite low additional cost, $2,700 a home, which I think is pretty phenomenal. Next slide. Okay, another one of our success stories is the Aerobarrier home sealant. This is a project actually that was funded by the CEC for 5 years prior to being commercialized. The company Aerobarrier has licensed the technology from UC Davis and has really built a whole business around it. They've sealed over 125,000 homes and 35 million square feet of commercial office space. This was another one of those research technologies that was co-funded by DOE, so it was kind of incubated and then licensed and then developed into a commercially available product now. It's a pretty cool thing if you're not familiar with it. The idea is that the house is pressurized and the house is leaking. Let's go to the next slide, actually, and we can see it a little bit better. Everything's taped up in the house, all of the outlets, windows, doors, and this sealant is blown in, which is kind of like a liquid glue. And as the air rushes out of this positively pressurized environment of the home, it rushes out through all of the cracks. But the air has this sealant in it that's an aerosol, and so it sticks to itself as it rushes out through those cracks and seals up the cracks. And you can actually watch it in real time. You can't quite see it on the right, but that was the computer that they were using at the time when we saw the demonstration of it. And you can see the leakage rate of the home go down in real time as it's operating. So pretty phenomenally effective. Next slide. Okay, another probably maybe a little bit more on the standard side of what we fund. So integrated controls. This is a UC Davis California Lighting Technology Center project. And the objective of this project is to get the various computers that are installed in the smart lighting, the HVAC program, the programmable thermostat, the daylighting controls, the ceiling fans, to get them all to talk to each other. So UC Davis has been building this kind of software prototype, which you can see on the left, and testing it in their lab at the Lighting Technology Center. And then they'll be actually installing it at the Barn, which is an office space on campus with faculty and grad student housing. So developing a prototype in the lab and then testing it in a real life situation. Next slide. Okay, so this is the last project that I'm going to talk about. This is another one that I think is particularly interesting. This is a hospital ventilation project. The partners on it are Kaiser and Mazzetti, and we're also working very closely with OSHPD. OSHPD is a state agency that regulates hospitals and comes up with the ventilation requirements. The recipient for this project is AMS, Advanced Microgrid Solutions. And the goal here is to reduce energy use of these hospitals while improving indoor air quality. So some of you may know that hospitals just have an enormous energy load for all the equipment that's mandated, in order to sterilize everything and keep everyone healthy. And there are strict requirements about air exchanges and outdoor air that has to come in at certain intervals in order to meet these OSHPD requirements. And what this project is doing is installing air quality sensors inside of the hospital to monitor for various indoor air contaminants, including CO2 and also particles, which can be viruses or bacteria. And the idea is to be able to control the HVAC system so that if, let's say, there's a waiting room that has a really high occupancy, you might want more air exchanges per hour. And if it's totally unoccupied, you might want less. But right now, the OSHPD regulations require a static number of air exchanges per hour because at the time that they were written, we didn't have the ability to moderate air exchanges and to monitor the actual indoor air quality of these hospitals. So this is an exciting project because there's huge potential for energy savings in California at the hospitals. It has the potential to improve the actual air quality that people breathe. And it also has the potential to increase the resilience of these hospitals. So if we can find a way of even reducing, say, by 20% or a third of the energy use of hospitals, many of these hospitals are designated evacuation centers, and they're the ones that are required, they have diesel generators, they're going to last for a week so that if people are injured in a natural disaster, they can come there. And these hospitals are required to run at full operation. And if we can reduce their energy use, that means that maybe instead of 1 week after a natural disaster, they can run for 2 weeks. So very important in terms of being able to serve the communities better. And then the photo that you see here is the Acclima air quality sensor, which is being used to collect the air quality data. And the location is the South Bay Medical Center in Southern California. Next slide. Okay, so my contact information. I also have some links to our projects. You can search our Tech Innovation Showcase by keyword, and you can search it by natural gas, electricity, hospitals, vineyards, kind of anything that strikes your fancy. Also the link to our current research funding RFPs page. This is where we post live solicitations that are out on the street. And then also a link to our CalSeed Small Grants program, which is grants under $150,000. And I want to take a quick moment to mention to folks that our EPIC Symposium is going to be on February 19th here in Sacramento. It's free, it's open to the public, and it'll be very sort of similar to what I talked about today, but at a much larger scale. And many of our recipients are going to be there to answer questions about their projects, some recently completed projects. And we have a very full day of some high profile speakers. Senator Henry Stern will be there, and Assemblymember Gomez Reyes, Dave Danielson, formerly from EERO at DOE and RPE, and many CEC and CPUC commissioners. So with that, I guess I'll open the floor for questions. And I guess we're right at 5 o'clock, so I was successful at making up the time.
Woo! Did it, we ended exactly on time. So one of the questions, there's a small wave of protest as you're showing gas-driven heat pumps. and I resisted interrupting you because I hate them. But can you talk a little bit, like the gas-driven heat pumps, that's a real product? Those look like they were manufactured by somebody, or are they experimental? What's the story with them?
They are a product. I would have to get back to you with more information about how readily available they are.
Oh, I don't want them, believe me. I'm just sort of curious. Let's see here. What other questions do we have on the chat? I think what was interesting, Greg Fotenhauer loved your modular house example. And you were saying, like, 10,000 a year, and I was thinking there's about 85,000 homes total built a year, so it's like 1 in 8, which is a lot being built in factories.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea prior to this project. I thought that like most of the mobile homes in California were old, and a lot of them are, but I just didn't realize that we're building so many new ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I know a person who is involved in a lot of mobile home parks, is like an ownership kind of person. And California apparently has been transitioning mobile home parks into apartment complexes. And I admit I've been involved in a couple of those. It's still a thing. There's still homes. And now that just a couple of years ago, the building code got enforced upon modular homes, and it hadn't been before. They'd allowed it to be the federal code, which is terrible, and allows like electric resistance furnaces and electric resistance water heaters in. So now that the California Energy Code has to be applied to those same buildings newly, as of a couple of years ago, wow, those are really nice buildings. Those are the best modular homes pretty much built in the country, other than the Vermont Energy Investment Corporation.
Wow.
Yeah. So VEIC, if you ever want to check them out, they're awesome.